Welcome to Mom Jeans. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Tina.
And whether you wear boyfriend, bootcut, high-rise, or low-rise, this podcast is going to teach you to love the jeans you're in.
So mamas, put your booty in a chair and let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to the bonus episode called Kurbo. Today we're going to be talking about the what and why behind this app that was created by Weight Watchers that has been catching a lot of terrible buzz lately, or maybe positive buzz, I don't know, but it's been catching buzz. So Rachel and I are going to be chatting about it and telling you a little bit more details on what it is and why we believe that this is not an effective tool to help children become healthy and intuitive eaters. I want to throw out a disclaimer before we really dive into it that we're going to be using, unfortunately, the word obesity. Rachel and I, do not believe that this is an appropriate measure of someone's health or weight, nor do we use this word in our private practices or day-to-day lives. However, we are using this word today to simply directly quote a statistic.
So when you read about the Kurbo app, you will probably be reading about arguments on both sides of the debate about the appropriateness of Kurbo, depending on what research you do. Weight Watchers, or as it now goes by, WW, is looking at the trendy, quote-unquote, childhood obesity epidemic term that has been coined by the government that is based on the statistic of 18% of children under the age of 18 that fall under the category of quote-unquote obesity. If you go back to the episode on weight where we discussed BMI, you'll learn about the arbitrary system of setting weight ranges, as well as why children should not be measured by the BMI scale, which is exactly what the government's basically doing in order to classify weight when they apply the term obesity to children. So our arguments against this Kurbo app stems from the overwhelming research that shows the statistics of how many dieters and children who hate their bodies will either develop an eating disorder or spend a lifetime of miserably yo-yo dieting and not trusting their body. If you go on the NIDA website under statistics and research, you will find frightening numbers that scare us way more than any falsified child obesity numbers on the CDC website. Tina, can you give us a few of these statistics?
Yeah, so here's a couple. 57% of adolescents engage in crash dieting, fasting, self-induced vomiting, diet pills, or laxatives. Those who dieted moderately were 5 times more likely to develop an eating disorder. And girls who dieted frequently are 12 times as likely to binge as girls who don't diet. Or how about the fact that 95% of dieters are going to regain their lost weight in that 1 to 5 year time period. So ultimately, mamas, diets don't work. And while WW labels this as a wellness program that teaches lifestyle changes, I'm being very fluid and exaggeratory with my words. Is exaggeratory a word?
Lots of quotation marks here.
Lots of quotes. But really, WW is just putting lipstick on a pig. That's the bottom line, is that it is still steeped in diet culture because it makes eating a cerebral function rather than intuitive. So Rachel's going to tell us a little bit more about what the Kurbo app is.
Okay, so we told you why we don't like it. Let's tell you what it is. Okay, so the Kurbo app recently came out a couple months ago. It's developed by WW for children. That's right, I said children, ages 8 to 17. It's to help.
My gosh.
I know. I have an 8-year-old and I'm horrified. Okay, it's to help them.
Isn't it to 4? Can we check that?
Okay, so it's to 18 on their website. On the App Store, it says ages 4 plus.
Yeah, I thought that.
But
that is crazy.
So WW's website has it starting at age 8, but on the App Store it says appropriate for ages 4 plus, which again,
Yikes.
I think Elmo apps only for ages 4.
Yes.
Not Kurbo.
Okay. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
That's okay. So the goal is to quote unquote, again, lots of quotation marks in today's episode, to help children reach a healthier weight. But it basically encourages them to track every single bite they eat. It does this by having kids rate their foods under the categories of green light, yellow light, or red light. Green light foods are foods that are great to eat anytime. Yellow light are foods that are important for healthy eating, but watch your portions. Again, that's a direct quote. And red light foods are stop and think about how to budget them in. This also invites kids to basically set weight loss as the number one goal and encourages children to post before and after pictures to track their body transformations.
Yeah. I can hear a lot of moms right now saying in their head, what is wrong with red light, yellow light, green light related to food? Because this is taught in some of our school systems. But I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think that this is a further problem for children. So, one of my concerns with the app is how you, as the professional on the other side of the app, can actually assess if the client using the app is developing an eating disorder or already has an eating disorder or is already engrossed in diet culture and not appropriate to be using this app. Or how is the professional assessing that the energy needs that are recommended on the app are a safe and appropriate amount for a growing child? Or that the client slash child is actually following the recommendations in a safe way. Basically, they can't, you know? In order to figure this out, I really wanted to do a little bit of my own research. So I created a fake profile because a lot of my peers were doing the same thing. And I'm like, I want to see about it myself. And one day, I basically put that all I ate was lettuce and apples and fruits and veggies, nothing else. And I was giving the green light that I was doing a great job. And then I did the opposite, which I had a day where my family and I were quote unquote traveling, and I ate a lot of denser foods that day because that's what was accessible, and aka fast food places. But I was eating within an appropriate portion size. This is not real life. I was just kind of making an example. So on that day, I wasn't overeating, appropriate portions, but I was given yellow and red lights because, according to the app, I was not eating properly and taking in too dense of foods. So ultimately, this concerns me that children are going to learn that normal behaviors like traveling with their family and eating denser options, or not even just traveling, just having a day where we're eating a little bit more and other days that balance it out, that they're not going to be able to normalize that as healthy habits around food. They're not going to learn moderation, and they're ultimately not going to learn to express their emotions through healthy coping skills because they're going to be numbed out through restriction, maybe emotional eating or rebounding from the diet cycle, and ultimately mistrusting their bodies.
Yeah, I've seen some other anti-diet RDs that have also created fake profiles and basically have lifted the veil on what exactly this Kurbo app is coaching kids as red light, yellow light, green light foods. I think the bottom line is you and I and so many different RDs are trying to explain how complex food is. It's not a black and white situation where there's good foods and then there's bad foods. And if you only eat the good foods or you only eat the bad foods, and you have to do it the exact same way every single day. There's so much flexibility in food and our relationship with food, and that's where the true intuitive eating comes in. So this type of app has kids staying in this lane. It's the green lane. And then heaven forbid you cross over a little bit to the yellow lane and then, make sure you're not in the red lane very often. And it's just very confusing. Like, we just want more fluidity and flexibility to teach our children and not something that is so quote unquote simplified. Some of the foods that were given yellow or red on the app were foods that have a lot of nutritional value, such as avocado, hummus, applesauce, peanut butter, bread, milk, chia seeds, and nuts. This is exactly what's making dietitians so infuriated because there are amazingly nutritious foods that are being broken down solely by their calorie content and simplified by a number, and kids are being steered away from these foods. These are foods that our bodies and brains need, sometimes even more than fruits and vegetables, to survive and to grow and to think in schools.
Exactly. That's why I was so upset when I'm having that one day that is denser items where it's like, I'm not overeating. It's important that I take in these foods. And
Yeah.
you can't just direct me to only have apples and lettuce all day. That
No.
is not healthy. But yet it's giving me the thumbs up, green light, good job.
It's also not enough nutrients for thinking in school. To go back to some of our previous episodes on carbohydrates,
Totally not.
you're steering away from the number one brain food that children are needing in order to focus in school. So one of the main components of the app that Tina touched on a little bit as far as the professional quote unquote on the other side of the app, basically the app will individually set you up with a coach. And this coach will be kind of your mentor that will help you meet your weight loss goals and keep you accountable. So I did some research on the qualifications of many of these coaches because I was kind of curious what professionals are on the other side of the app. They basically just need to pass a basic background check to make sure they're safe to work with children and have, quote unquote, training in areas of fitness, nutrition, and behavior change. That's obviously a very general qualification, in my opinion.
Yeah, what does training mean?
Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know because I literally clicked on the website all the different bios of all the different coaches they have listed. Here are some of the degrees that these coaches have: tourism management, healthcare management, IT consultant, politics, economics, yoga instructor, business, executive consulting, hypnosis, and ready? Chinese medicine.
Oh
Do
my
I need to
gosh.
go on?
I'm wondering if any of them are statisticians.
Yeah, or astronomers. I mean, good old Lammy from the previous episode.
Lammy, hey buddy.
He would be great on the Kurbo app here. Um,
Sarcasm,
not,
sarcasm.
not to toot my own horn, but I know I personally spent 6 years in school, 3 years of internships, 2 state licensing exams, and another few years of specific eating disorder training in order to even be able to work ethically in my job. Tina, how many years did you spend studying nutrition science and becoming a licensed dietitian?
Oh my gosh, really? You know, so many. I did 5 years of undergrad because I wanted to stay in school longer, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
fun. College is a
2 years,
blast.
college, yeah. 2 years post grad, which was an internship slash school combined. One national exam. I have to maintain my licensure since I'm in Texas and it's a licensed state. I have to
Same.
maintain CEU hours. And I've had many, many, many years of eating disorder training, pretty much since 2008. So I've taken courses, I've gone through the CEDRD specialty, same as Rachel. I mean, just spending so many years to become a specialist in the field. It's
So
a
you're
lot.
not an IT consultant who just does this in the evenings.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, I don't have time for a lot of other things. If I were to go into another field, I don't think I could do this as well. How do
No.
people do this?
I don't know.
They
Their
can't. They can't.
their
That's the thing.
their training is very vague.
Yeah. I mean, I also understand, though, how this can be challenging as a parent who's not an expert in the field. I have a friend that I interviewed who is a therapist in the eating disorder world who had an experience with her 2 daughters, one specifically with her daughter's pediatrician, and then another with her other daughter's teacher. And basically, her pediatrician told her one daughter that she needed to be mindful about what she was eating because her BMI was concerning. When she was telling me this story, I immediately thought of how I wanted to include her in this episode. So check out the interview on this infuriating story. Hey everyone, we're here with Jenny Harris. Jenny Harris is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Here's a little blurb about her. She grew up in Houston, Texas. Yeehaw, y'all! She graduated from Vanderbilt University with a BS in child development and a minor in women's studies. Heck yeah, go Jenny. She then graduated with a master's in family therapy and a graduate certificate in women's studies. Man, you like got a lot of education here. Love it, love it. She's been in private practice for the last 8 years with a focus on eating disorders, disordered eating, and body image struggles. She approaches eating disorders from an intuitive eating perspective and is Hays informed. And she is a fabulous therapist that I absolutely love working with, sharing an office space with, and she's just like generally a rad human. So yeah, I wanted to bring you on this specific episode because we're talking about children and not having weight loss be recommended for children. And I immediately thought of you because you told me this terrible story one day in the office, and I thought, what better person to share this? I think it's important for people to realize that this happens to everybody, even professionals in the field. So would you be willing to share your experience you had at your child's pediatrician?
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you thinking about me. Because yeah, it was a really crappy experience. Essentially, we had gone in we have 2 daughters. And so we had actually already had a kind of similar conversation with our pediatrician about BMI with our older daughter when she was 2 or 3. And I thought we had kind of nipped the conversation in the bud. But I guess we did not, because with our second kiddo, when we went for her 3-year-old check, we went through all the tests. She asked a lot of questions. She looked over the survey we wrote, and she gave us a lot of really positive feedback about our kiddo. Said, her emotional, social development's great. Her vitals are great. She, her sight, hearing, everything about her is just wonderful. She looks like she's right exactly where she needs to be. But then she ended the session or the appointment by saying, but I'm looking at her BMI and it shows that she's overweight. Mind you, she's 3. Said she's in the
3 years old.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
And that she was in the 90th percentile, or 90-somethingth percentile. I could look it up. But, and then started going into all of the health concerns that she was going to be at risk for and likely to have if her weight didn't change.
Do you remember what those health concerns were?
I think heart disease was one of them.
Wow.
Because she was 3.
Mm-hmm. Probably diabetes or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember because I think I definitely was more in the, out of flight, fight, or freeze. I was definitely in freeze.
Yeah.
Sort of confused about why we're having this conversation. And so I got a little heated, a little frustrated, and just was saying, we really, in our house, we don't really think the BMI is a very helpful tool.
Right.
Working with eating disorders, I don't think it's a very helpful tool. So I'm not really concerned about it. And she said something like, yeah, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, or something like that. Like, I hear that all the time, but it's really important that we look at it. And I mean, just look at your daughter. She's chunky.
Eee!
Yeah. And it's like, I beg your pardon.
Oh my. Yeah.
3, you have no way to indicate whether or not.
For sure. And 5 minutes ago, she was tooting your daughter's horn about how well she's doing and developmentally thriving.
Yeah. And after watching, how our 5-year-old has grown, remembering how I grew as a kid.
Yeah.
There was that recognition of, we're sort of like accordions. We kind of,
yeah.
get thinner, we get squattier, we get thinner, we get squattier, it just kind of does its own thing. And so we kind of were going this back and forth where, I think she said 2 things. I think she said, look at her, she's chunky, she's definitely fat. I can see her rolls. I was like, I think I was just speechless. I didn't really know what to say about it because, on the one hand, this was a physician that had helped us out with a lot of hard stuff with our older child. And so I really had valued her help and valued her as a doctor, but to then be put in this position where theoretically I was at odds with her. I was worried about the things that she was saying right in front of my kiddo.
Yeah.
And then, future tripping about how many other people are going to say things like this to my kids. How is that going to affect them? And so I think I left the appointment a little stunned.
Yeah. And I remember you coming into the office being like, I'm not wrong, right? And that's where I was like, wow, I can't even imagine how this was for you, because it's like, I know as a professional, right?
Yeah, I believe it wholeheartedly. But again, having a doctor tell you that your kiddo might have some health problems, it still sinks in on some level.
For sure.
Plus, then I got into this like mental tug of war of, on the one hand, I was frustrated. I didn't advocate for my kiddo more and say, like, I don't appreciate some of the things you're saying. Like, I don't think this is healthy. But then there was also this other part of, well, I also don't want to fat shame or, carry on this idea that, like, if she is in a larger body, that's a bad thing.
Right.
That she's insulting my kiddo by saying that. And so I also didn't want to, like, I don't know. It was just very challenging to figure out, what do I even do?
For sure. And I think it flows into my next question, which is like, how do you think you handled or would handle for the future as a mom and then as a professional? Because I think there's two brains going on there at the same time. So how was that experience for you from both?
Yeah, I don't know. It's still I'm still confused on it because the two feel so fused for me.
Yeah.
Because I think of a therapist role sometimes as being, a loving disciplinarian on some level.
Yeah.
Which is what we are as parents. So sometimes it feels like the two roles are pretty similar.
For sure.
And so I think if I could redo it again, I would want to, in the moment, in front of my kiddo, talk to the doctor and say, we try really hard to live a healthy lifestyle that includes, following the principles set by intuitive eating. We believe that all bodies are going to be different. We exercise, we eat nutritious food, we eat fun food, we have a full variety of stuff, so we're not really worried.
For sure. Right.
In her weight, and I don't think it's helpful to talk about it in front of her.
Yeah.
I think is what, in an ideal world, I'd like to go back and do.
Yeah.
And then I think I would also have a conversation with her. She has a really cool body that allows her to do a lot of things, and that we all look different, and that, throughout her life, her body's going to look a lot of different ways.
Do you feel like that's a conversation that you are going to have, or that's necessary right now, or?
I think it's necessary now, but I think it changes as they age.
For sure.
At 30, obviously, most of that's not going to necessarily sink in.
Right.
But having some of those shorter conversations of, you're a healthy, fun girl, you have a really wonderful body that allows you to do cool things.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then maybe, like, asking her, what do you like to do in your body? Do you like to swim? Do you like to jump?
Right.
And just keeping it essentially age appropriate. But what I noticed, again, like, I feel like so much of my parenting has come from just watching with our older one. But with our older one, I noticed that there was lots of things that we would tell her when she was little, like specifically when we were pregnant, and telling her, we're going to have a baby, you're going to have a little sister, and it seemed like she had no idea what we were talking about. There was no recognition. It was like blank stare, and I was like, okay, cool. But we'd say it daily, essentially, and then, when we were like 8 months pregnant, she all of a sudden one day was like, oh, there's a baby in your tummy, and I'm going to have a little sister, and I'm going to meet her at the hospital.
Uh-huh. So it's clicking.
This stuff is sinking in.
Yeah.
We're planting these seeds that hopefully are creating, ideas or help create your self-concept. So
for sure.
I still think it's important to talk about, but just, making sure that the conversation continues to grow, with their age.
Right. So as you kind of brought it up in your one of 2 points, like as an intuitive eater yourself and working in the eating disorder world, like I know you're an intuitive eater because one, I've seen you eat, and two, we share people together and I trust you. But did this experience affect your confidence in your own eating, in your ability to feed your kids, or any advice you would give to parents that have the same experience and then go, I don't know what I'm doing, help me. You know, I've lost all my confidence.
Yeah. I think, you know, especially after talking to you, like, it definitely gave me, like, a quick little reminder, like, oh, yeah, she's fine, you know, her growth charts are fine, she's, you know, she's where she needs to be, and trying to fit every 3-year-old baby into the same body is, you know, as ludicrous as what we do with adults. So,
exactly.
You know, I feel like that fear was eased pretty quickly, but it did remind me, or it did bring up for me, hey, maybe I need to be a little, even more purposeful with instilling a lot of these beliefs into their daily eating habits. And, you know, because it's very easy to, you know, like, we want in this house to follow, like, you know, rules, you know, put out by Ellen Satter, or, you know, intuitive eating and these other things, but it's so easy to fall into, oh, you didn't finish your dinner, so no, you can't have ice cream.
Right.
And, well, I don't really know if that's what I believe is appropriate. And so in my mind, more times than not, it's because, well, I want you to eat nutrition so you're growing.
Right.
And I don't want you to just not eat it so you'll get full with ice cream, you know?
Right.
Or you're about to go to bed and I want you to be all rowdy.
Exactly.
So I think what it brought up for me more is, like, oh, gosh, this world is super hard to grow up in and have an appropriate relationship with food. So I need to be even more proactive about that part.
For sure. Yeah, I love how you're going more to, oh, I'm continuing to instill this philosophy versus assessing the food, because I think it's, you know, that you're doing what you need to be doing, but more so, am I instilling these beliefs in her that I feel so strongly about, and how can I keep doing that? Because there are going to be these wackos who are telling my daughter, whoever, that their body isn't great, or that they should be different, you know? Like, could you even imagine putting her on a diet? And what would that even look like? Like,
what in the world puts a baby on a diet?
I don't know.
You know, I'll say, to the doctor's credit, you know, what her suggestion was, you know, instead of having French fries 3 times a week, have it once a week, you know? And so, like, some of her suggestions weren't, like, completely eliminate this type of food.
Right.
But that concept was still very present of, we need to be manipulating what's happening with her weight.
Which is, I mean, the dietitian in me is, like, screaming inside, because the reality is she's still within her growth curve. Like, that's the main thing. And so it's like, yeah, sometimes I love your analogy about the accordion of, like, sometimes we stretch and sometimes we squish, and as long as the growth, they are growing, everything is great. And that doesn't mean that they can't grow and gain, or are gaining but not growing. Something is happening, and we have to trust that, you know, there's intention behind that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I don't know, and I was just going to say, like, even with the accordion analogy, like, it brought up for me, like, remembering when both my kiddos were infants, well, more specifically the older one, and I had a nurse one time tell me, don't only feed her every 3 hours. And it's like, okay, I don't have a baby, like,
right,
sure, I'll like, just sit with a screaming baby. And then she started losing weight, and then I took her to an appointment. They're like, your baby's underweight, like, why is she underweight? Are you not feeding her? And it's like, oh gosh, I thought I was doing the right thing. And so then, you know, I got super focused on, is she eating enough? Is she getting enough milk? And then I was thinking about, it's like this back and forth of, oh my gosh, is your baby getting enough food? Oh my gosh, your baby's getting too much food. I mean, it feels like the obsessiveness that we have, just, you know,
for sure,
the culture at large being hyper focused on body and food and what's happening with it and how freely we should be doing it. And it just felt super overthought.
Right. For sure. And so I think for those mamas listening to this podcast, it's like, look, we have 2 people right now talking who are professionals in the field, Rachel included, so 3 people. We all have children, and still, even though we feel confident in our abilities, it still can be confusing. So then we have this app that is coming out or is out and is trying to somehow guide children in changing their health. You know, they're under the guise that like, hey, we're not just trying to make them lose weight, we're trying to assist them in health. But if these aren't trained professionals, if you're not meeting with the client individually and really assessing what's going on, how the hell is this even possible? You know what I mean? Like, this cannot be done in a safe way. And it concerns me and makes me sad for all those little kiddos.
Yeah, for sure. And I've definitely heard that feedback from other parents or teens who have said that their doctor, told them you need to lose 80 pounds.
My gosh.
Period. And that is the suggestion.
Yeah.
Here's your homework. Go lose 80 pounds. And it's like, well, so how does one do such a thing? If that's even a thing that's, medically needed or whatever.
Right.
And so it's just sort of an absurd directive
of like, do this.
And when I've heard that feedback from some people, I've asked them, well, did they ask you what you were currently eating, how much you were currently moving, like, other things like that, because we know the weight is just a symptom of something else, like,
right.
Which also might just be that you have a different body type.
For sure, and not shaming that and just letting us all exist how we are. Yeah.
Even with the clients too, it's like, they're not having back problems, they're not having knee problems, they're not having things that, medically, weight might actually be, complicating.
Right. Well, for sure. And that's why I pointed out, like, hey, your doctor had literally just tooted your little girl's horn saying, everything's great, developmentally, amazing, growing, great, thumbs up. Oh, P.S., weight.
It felt very much she is going to have.
Yeah, it's a weight normative approach that's saying weight is going to cause X, Y, and Z, and we know that to be false. Which is sad that your pediatrician is sitting in that realm of healthcare. So I think you're taking the positive route, which is like, hey, I'm not immediately changing pediatricians and possibly can educate this person and set my personal boundaries and, guide that versus, just immediately trying to find someone else. But that is just not always possible for everyone to do. So I think that that's awesome. And that's typically the route that I take of like, ooh, cool, this is an education route. And maybe we can get someone on this weight informative system. So I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping for. But it definitely is one of those situations where if this is an impasse that isn't passable, then it's going to have to be,
something.
It's going to have to be the end of that.
For sure.
But, and I think we talked about this that same day too. One of the things that brought up for me, when it happened both times with both kiddos, is that, again, as somebody who does this every day, who feels very confident in their own eating and belief systems around food and body positivity, it just made me so sad for people, that have very different understandings of diet culture and weight. And so, who are taking their very precious baby into a doctor's appointment and get this feedback of like, you're condemning your child to a life of poor health.
Yeah.
Like, help lose weight. And it's like, dang, that would be so scary.
So scary.
This other side.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that this is where ultimately diet culture is perpetuated it's a never-ending system if doctors and healthcare providers really don't start shifting it. And that's where spreading this awareness around this app of like, this is not the solution for children to have healthier habits or for parents to have healthier habits. And so I hope that those listening to this podcast can really just, if you're still unsure, then at least having this kind of open your eyes to do a little bit more research about a different avenue to help your kids that could be something more long-term, successful, and body accepting. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think, a while back when you were saying, what would be your recommendation to other mamas, I think one of the best things that we can do for our kids and helping them, love their bodies, feel safe and good around food and exercise and, body inclusivity is to just be really clear on where we stand and the values we have around food and how we interact with food and body image and all these other things, because, we know that humans learn through repetition and modeling, and if we're not leading top down in that way, I think that's a real tripping point.
For sure. And that's, I think we have to take care of ourselves so that we can raise families that are healthy themselves. So I love that.
Yeah, and to not have different messages, because, I've even met people who they're being really conscious about trying to, be HAES informed and practice intuitive eating with their kiddos, but don't necessarily do it for themselves. And so when you have that disconnect, it gets, it's really well intended, but it might not be having the same, benefit.
Yeah, it's confusing for everyone involved. So how does it feel to think that you have to monitor your kids' food and make them lose weight?
I didn't even know how you do that.
You don't?
My our younger one is not fixing to eat something she doesn't want to eat.
Right. I mean, this is...
She doesn't want the same plate. It can't even be on the same plate.
Right.
So, I'm not real clear how, I'm supposed to make her eat whatever the hell she thinks that she's supposed to be eating.
And this is the thing with intuitive eating, and I hit on it in a previous episode, that, kids are the best intuitive eaters if we just let them do it. And per Ellen Satter, it's our role as parents, it's to present the food, provide variety, but we really cannot tell them how much and when and all of that. So, if they're not wanting to eat it, they're not going to eat it. And that's just that. And so I think you hit it right on the head when you're saying and I'm going to set boundaries that it's I want you to eat this meal and not fill up on ice cream solely because I don't want you running around banging your head off the wall. Not because ice cream's bad or anything, but because it's close to bedtime and we know that this makes you hyper. That's just the reality.
I'm tired.
Yeah, but we're not going to force you to eat your green beans in order to have ice cream. And so I think you're just saying it great, where it's no, we really can't, and we're also doing a damn good job. So
I can't see how that happens. But we try to talk a lot about, kind of what food does for you, have protein that's going to help us, continue to grow, vegetables are going to help you not, sometimes to get constipated, and it's hey,
you got to eat those.
Help you not feel bad.
Help you poopy. Yep.
Popcorn's super yummy and makes movies really fun.
I love it.
Trying to talk about all foods serve a function.
Yeah.
They do different things. All are fine. And just one more thing I wanted to reemphasize was, in regards to the appointment that we had with our daughter, I think one of the things, and I said it a little bit earlier, but I want to make sure I was clear on it. One of the things that was so hard about it is because, when I told some other people about this story, some of the reaction I got was, I can't believe she said your baby was fat. And yes, I had that same reaction, but it was more due to, this seems ridiculous that you have any sort of belief system about what's happening with my kiddo's body when she's 3, and you're putting a label on her while she's growing, and that's stigmatized.
Yeah.
But the sense I got from some other people is that it felt like an insult, and I wanted to find a way to, communicate to others or communicate to my daughter or whatever that, we don't want to shame being in a larger body. That's not an insult. It's not bad. What was bad was the labeling her as unhealthy because she had a body style, shape, size, whatever, that the doctor had decided was wrong.
For sure. Not even using anything valid, instead using the judgment that, oh, hey, your weight is in this category and that is a bad thing and going to cause all these diseases, versus actually looking at the true health of your daughter, which is great. There's nothing wrong. Yeah.
And so it became super complicated on how to communicate that, of like, I'm not upset because you called my kiddo fat. I'm upset because you're supporting this, this weight stigma or fat phobia, or the idea that we're all supposed to fit into the exact same body, and then attributing some of that, or attributing the parts that she said were bad to my kiddo.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
Because I feel like telling girlfriends are like, they called your baby fat, and it's like, well, that's not the problem.
Yeah, I'm not scared of the word, and I'm not scared to have a fat child. It's don't tell my kid that they need to change when everything's great and their body is perfect how it is. I would feel the exact same way, and am already being super protective about all of this, and none of it's even happening yet, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, and I'd be curious to see how it goes with me having a son. And
for sure,
there unfortunately there definitely is a difference, and I don't want it to have to be that way, but it is. So yeah, we'll see.
I'm curious what hearing this story, and with everything and being a mom, like, what do you think is the some takeaways for other moms listening to this episode?
Yeah, I think it really is making sure that you're educated on what is the true assessment of health. And it is never safe to force a kid to change its weight, even if their weight is sitting at a range that you feel is too heavy, or they have too many rolls, or whatever people are saying. We have to allow these children to let their body do their thing. And if they're in their growth pattern, then let it happen. I think that, or at the same time, having a child that has beautiful rolls that we can smush into, that's way better. Yes, that is way better than shoving them into a lifestyle of dieting. And, you and I see so many adults struggling with eating disorders, in the diet culture, with negative body image. And I would say a strong majority, it's like, oh yeah, my mom put me on a diet when I was 4 years old. And it's like, huh? Why? No. So
it was swimsuit season.
Yeah. So to preach to those mamas, it's like, stay educated, make sure you're tapping into resources, and truly know that weight is not a predictor of our health. We can all weigh various amounts and be at the epitome of health, and it's no different for our children. So hopefully listening to, this series and this episode specifically, we can help guide everyone in that. And then, we'll just, Rachel and I, and, Jenny, thanks for being on this, but we'll just all continue to educate and provide the resources so that, we all can ourselves be intuitive eaters and raise intuitive eaters. So, yeah. Thanks for joining, Jenny.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Appreciate what you do.
Yeah.
Mom jeans.
Yeah, mom jeans. All right, transferring back to Rachel and I. So I want to thank Jenny for letting us interview her. So thank you, Jenny.
Thanks,
you're amazing.
Jenny.
So to kind of go a little bit deeper into why that situation that Jenny experienced just really pissed me off, is that this pediatrician is assessing her child's health off of her BMI. And like we had stated in the previous episodes on your weight, a child's health should not be using BMI. It should be using their appropriate growth curve. The growth curve allows us to measure a child's growth with appropriate ranges of fluctuation. So this is for the purpose that children go through growth spurts and puberty, and they should not be measured within a small range like BMI. Also, that will mean that they may hold on to weight in planning for a growth spurt. So ultimately, what is going to happen if a child is holding on to more weight for this growth spurt, and instead we're putting them on a diet because their BMI is their pediatrician is judging them off of their BMI? How do you think that's going to affect their development?
Yeah, Mama said if you have an experience where your pediatrician or someone else that's a trusted adult gives you some feedback on your child's weight and maybe suggestions on how to change it, I want you to really get a second opinion from someone who's more trained in the eating disorder field or in the anti-diet approach. We really are against diets for children, and we come at it from a lot of statistics. And like we started this episode with, we want you to pay attention not just to the statistics that sometimes the pediatrician or the CDC go by, but the statistics of the long-term implications of all this. So we wanted to share Jenny's story with you because we understand how confusing this might be for you when you want to put your child's health as a priority, but you're not exactly sure how to do it. So we just want to give you a little bit more information on the concerns that we have about a lifetime of dieting.
Exactly. And I mean, Jenny works in the field, so she's a trained professional that has the background that Rachel and I have, and she still had a hard time with it. So hopefully that can validate a little bit to you all that this is a really challenging situation. So my question that, I want you all to kind of think about is, how does engaging in a life of dieting or starting dieting at such a young age create true healthy habits? I'm going to say that most of my clients that engage in diets as a young child are still struggling with food behaviors, negative body image, and mistrust with their body. I don't think that this type of system is helping us develop healthy behaviors. I'm also upset with the person behind all of this, Oprah, that backs WW and Kurbo. This is a person that has struggled with dieting all of her life and body image issues, and she's been very vocal about that. She's not hiding that this is an issue for her. The part that really frustrates me is that Oprah, she's a famous figure, and instead of using her status for the good, the greater good, and to spread true, positive, healthy eating habits, she's yanking other people in the depths of her struggle. She's trying to convince us to have young children and adults go through the same torture that she's been through.
Yeah, Oprah, I love you, but I'm very disappointed in you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think too, Oprah's very open about her history of severe childhood trauma. So I would think that she'd be more understanding of how objectifying children's bodies would harm kids and just be so much more protective of them.
Yeah, this is all super disgusting to me. I get really pissed off. I think we were very clear in our weight episodes about the complexities about what contributes to weight, and this is especially true of children. So this is a direct quote from WW in its attempt to sell this app. When it comes to helping kids and teens get healthier, science tells us that family-based behavior change programs work. Translation, you need your whole family behind you, and small changes add up to big results. That's why Kurbo is all about building new habits that make you feel great with lots of support from your parents. But ultimately, how do we help kids actually take charge of their health? First, we want to remind you that the external body size is not an indicator of our health, our children's health. So we automatically cannot support this app if weight loss is disguised as a health concern. While there are occasions where a child's weight can have actual physical side effects that would require medical attention, putting kids on diets is not ever the answer.
Yeah, I think the fact that Kurbo is toting this as a family program they're getting close to the concept that the overall family dynamic change is a key component in children's health. But this app really isn't geared towards the entire family. It's geared towards the child. So it's feeling a little sketchy, in my opinion. I think to answer your question of how do we help kids take charge of their health, overall, family support, the family dynamic changing, and therapy to assess management of anxiety, depression, and trauma. Teaching kids to cope without using food is the answer. I mean, sometimes kids will have ADHD or autism and their impulsivity comes out with their relationship with food. The answer then is, I don't know, medication or other diagnostic appropriate interventions, not a diet. Sometimes the family dynamic is such that the only foods offered and purchased are higher caloric foods because of finances or lack of education. So, in that case, there's no way a child can single handedly diet if the family is providing the foods for these children, which is most cases, family buys the foods, not the kids.
I don't know many 8-year-olds that are doing the grocery shopping. Sorry.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes abuse and trauma are prevalent in the home, and food's a coping skill for the children to escape. Again, dieting and the Kurbo app have nothing to do with this. Appropriate social work interventions are the answer. I think it's BS that Kurbo is selling this as a family app because you actually do not need parental approval to download the app if you're above the age of 13. So ages 8 to 13 need parental approval. 13 and up, they can do it on their own.
Can I ask you how they're even vetting if a child is really 13?
I don't know.
Exactly. So anybody can say that they're 13. I mean, kids are smart, man. You know, they could just put in a different birth year.
There's also no need for doctors to sign off on this.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, you also are tracking your food alone and being coached by a complete stranger. So this is not a family-oriented app, but a diet app for children. Let's just call it what it is. And it's a diet app for children to attempt to regulate their intake and exercise without any family supervision or family changes or medical supervision. Family is absolutely a big component to wellness because they're buying the foods, they're sending the messages, they're having the conversations about weight and bodies around the table. And they're in charge of movement, what sports their kids are enrolled in, what the family activities are on the weekends. I just really feel for kids who are trying to change all alone, who are watching their family eat, I don't know, pasta and sitting there thinking, well, I can't eat that because I'm out of red foods. Or watching their family watch TV and do errands on a Saturday thinking, well, my app says I need to go out for a run, but I don't know how to do that. So that's where often Tina and I see clients secretly exercising in their rooms or running up and down the halls and getting obsessed up and down the stairs. I mean, this really takes a turn in the clients that we see.
Yeah.
I think anyone can say that weight bullying is one of the most traumatic things a child can experience. Those nasty names and comments will stay with them forever. So naturally, we want to protect kids from that. So why wouldn't weight loss be the solution? It's not the solution because it will just add another layer of self-hatred. Telling kids they need to diet doesn't protect them. It actually destroys them further. Now they're not only fat, but they're going on diets with no education. They're eating differently from their peers and their family. They're made to feel like an outcast. They're obsessing over food and exercise, setting themselves up for a lifetime of restriction and exercise addiction. And they're experiencing cognitive impairment due to low nutrients, which could lead to lowered grades and then an entire new set of self-esteem issues. A lot of times these kids will then also receive praise for weight loss, which only emphasizes that their worth is external. And they're being objectified by posting their photos online. If any parent found out that a random adult on an app was telling their child to post photos of themselves, I mean, all the alarm bells would sound. But yet, it's okay with Kurbo because it's the name of weight loss. I mean, that's just so sick to me.
It's terrible. It's terrible. So we mentioned before that the app is being sold, quote unquote, and that is because it's not a free app, but rather it comes with a membership plan for a fee of $69 a month. However, the rates go lower if you sign up for longer.
What a deal.
So not only, oh, what a deal. Terrible. Children are now being seen as money-making commodities. Americans spend over $60 billion on dieting and diet products each year. I can't with that number. That makes me sad. That makes my heart hurt. If the government and WW actually cared about children's health, they would revamp the systems that are actually in place that feed the children. What foods are covered by food stamps and WIC? What foods are served in cafeterias? How much PE do our children have? Schools are government run. WIC is government run. And these are completely free resources that families and children have access to. But no one's making any of these changes because it's expensive for them. So instead, they're going to shame your kid for the effects of their system and then ask you to pay $69 a month to fix the problem.
So childhood health is something that we're all concerned about, and it's being labeled as a problem. So is this a problem that we are looking to fix, or how do we treat children and keep them healthy without putting them on diets?
Yeah. I want to first start off with the fact that growth happens, our lifestyles change, and kids' bodies are super resilient. So a diet is never going to be the answer. If we allow them to be kids and trust in their own bodies and get them support if they need it, then they'll be okay. Secondly, if a child is actually struggling with their eating, their body image, their mental health, I would recommend setting them up with a team of professionals that work in that field. Examples could be dietitian, therapist, a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, sitting down with their school counselor, someone getting them the help they need. Ideally, setting them up with a team that believe in the health at every size movement and actually practice that philosophy. If you don't know what that movement is, then go back and listen to episode 5, which is Your Weight Part 2, where we explain all of that. This intervention is going to ensure that your child is being assessed based off of their actual health of their body, their food behaviors, their mental health, their coping skills, versus being stigmatized and judged based off of their weight.
Yeah, I also encourage a full psychological assessment to look for other diagnoses that might be causing the weight changes or the use of food as a coping skill. In our field, we say that weight is a symptom. It's not a behavior or a problem. I always want to know what is really going on with this child and this family, because it's not a simple dietary change that a child can make alone. The bottom line is that children should not be using this app, and parents should be seeking out more educated professionals if they have concerns about their child. Eating is intuitive, and the greatest gift that we can give our children is teaching them how to honor their bodies, not punish their bodies. So we really want to encourage you mamas to get a lot more information and to give your child the well-rounded approach of psychological support, emotional support, coping skills, and nutrition in order to raise the healthiest kids possible. We want your child to learn to love their body, and we want you to get the support that you need in order to raise them to be body-loving kids.
Well said.
We hope this episode was really helpful for you. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us on the Facebook page, Mom Jeans the Podcast. There might be some interesting discussions going on with other mamas about how to manage Kurbo and other dietary advice for children.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
This episode of Mom Jeans was produced and edited by Rachel Coleman and Tina Lavoie.
Thank you to Jerry DePizzo for the music production.
You can find episode information and show notes at www.momjeansthepodcast.com.
Follow us on Instagram at Mom Jeans the Podcast and join the Mom Jeans the Podcast Facebook group to find a community of mamas learning to love their bodies and discussing the episode. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Mom Jeans. See you next time.